Welcome to episode 268 of Shop Talk Live. Today it is Mike, Barry, and me in the shop discussing shop stuff. And Barry and I probably get as close to being fired individually as is ever likely to happen. So Mike is patient. He's a patient man. That's all I'm going to say. Patient, understanding, and forgiving. I want to let everyone know, I don't think I told the podcast audience, but I know a lot of y'all love Mike Michelli and his finishing tips, tricks, and techniques. And if you are into that sort of thing and you feel like you don't really know what you're doing when you're coloring wood, dyeing and staining it, we have a video workshop up where he covers coloring and staining and dyeing wood. So I'm going to leave a link to that in the show notes. It's pretty fantastic. It's based on a class I took with him, and I learned a lot, and I wanted to bring that experience to the Fine Woodworking Unlimited members. So if you are an Unlimited member, head on over to the website and check that out. If you aren't, even more reason to head on over to the website, check out one of those videos and sign up for an Unlimited membership so you can see the others. All right, on with the show. Since 1928, Woodcraft has been outfitting woodworkers and their shops with everything woodworkers want. Whether it's the world's best tools you're looking for, or that special species of wood for your next project, Woodcraft has been helping you make wood work for more than 90 years. Visit woodcraft.com or shop one of their 75 stores nationwide to create something cool. So recently, there was a comment that we looked uncomfortable where we were sitting and when we did in person.
Wow.
Right. And somebody said, wait, Mike's the boss and you stuck him at the table saw. Shouldn't he get the comfortable position?
Huh.
And I got to thinking about it. I was like, I think you're underestimating how comfortable Mike Pekovich is at a table saw.
Yes. I saw that. Yeah. No, I was happy. I was right there.
Yeah. But for the audio only audience, we have a table.
Yeah.
And it's like moved in a different spot, and it's a little bit more comfortable, I'd say.
It feels like the old podcast when we were in the studio. It feels more like that than
at the round table. The round table was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The square table, you're kind of having to play ping pong. That's
a
little bit rough, but
so you didn't want the middle seat. I spent. I'm like, wait, did Mike sit in the middle? Am I in boss's seat?
Am I in boss's seat?
So you'd rather not play neck tennis?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's a weird phrase.
Well, have you ever seen like at a tennis match, or at least like sitcom representations of a tennis match?
I understood it.
Yeah.
Just never heard it's called neck tennis. Here's your vocab word for the week, folks. All right. So now that we're talking about, I brought up the table saw. Mm-hmm. Mike, we went all lunch without me mentioning this.
Yeah.
We've gone like a week without you mentioning this.
I know. I've been very quiet about it. I think it's time for me to sell the Unisaw.
Oh, that's what okay.
Oh. What are you going to get?
I have an Inca.
Inca?
Yes. I'm on the fence about it, so like, don't send me emails, folks, wanting to buy Mike Pekovich's old Unisaw. Like, there will be a queue formed orderly eventually, but so I've got an Inca.
I just want my cross-cut sleds back.
One's a ukulele neck, and
namely the fences.
I might be able to give you that uke if you want it.
So Inca, is that like a little 7-inch saw?
It's an 8-inch blade on there right now.
Or is it like 200 some millimeters? I feel like.
Well, I bought a Force Woodworker to.
Oh, you got inches. I was making an imperial metric joke, but
yeah. Does it have like a sliding table?
They had some of them did. This one doesn't. This one has the horizontal mortiser off the side, though.
I know.
Is it floor standing or tabletop?
Floor standing.
Is it?
It's a little wooden stand. So I've taken it apart 15 times so far, just cleaning it up. And one really surprising thing to me was I have always heard that white lithium grease cakes up and eventually to the detriment of the saw.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it's always been like Raleigh would always say, don't use white lithium grease on the working parts of a table saw.
Okay.
Wow. It really does. I mean, it becomes a paste.
Wow. Really? How'd you get it off?
Denatured alcohol. Yeah, just denatured alcohol and a toothbrush. And but it really, really caked up. And you know, when I first got the saw, there was the height adjustment was very difficult. Took it all apart. But yeah, it's a little table saw. It's 8-inch, and there's like blade stabilizers on the whole thing. Everything is super tight and precise. And the work that I do is small, and I'm not doing a lot of big panel stuff. So I've just always wanted an Inca. Yeah. So
what's the backstory on the Inca? It's not to be confused with Incra.
Yes. Right. Inca is a Swedish company.
I don't know. Yeah.
They were in Sweden and then moved to France, or the other way around. I forget. But it is, you know, like a finely tuned Swedish thing. They build them that way, you know?
That was in the Garrett Wade catalog way back. I've never seen it there. Yeah.
Yes. And they're all generally small, diminutive in size, and but very, very, a lot of, like a unisaw runs smoothly because of its mass is one factor in that. Incas are aluminum.
They're aluminum?
Yeah, the tables are, it's like a hardened aluminum and super light, and they run smoothly because they are machined to run smoothly. That's the difference, you know? I actually, Michael Hill, MWH Woodworker or something on Instagram, he's kind of the guy who got me hip to the Inca thing. And we were at Handworks in Iowa, and I saw this Inca bandsaw. And then I was talking to him in a line one day, and he had mentioned his wife got him a bunch of Inca when he got started. Oh, I was like, I just saw one of those bandsaws. He goes, oh, and so I started following him and just seeing the thing. And it just kind of turned into a thing I yearned for.
For I think the whole time I've been here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Handworks. Yeah.
Yeah. And but like, quite honestly, I would constantly be looking for Incas and never buying them.
You would just send me the links.
I would just send Barry the links. And a couple weeks ago, I saw one, 20 minutes away. Yeah. I sent it to Barry. It's like, oh, I don't even know why I do this to myself. And Barry was like, you have to buy this.
Because it was in great condition. It had the mortiser, which you'd been keen on, at least in theory, since like Kevin Rodell's Almia saw. Like that's when
So see more. It's basically it's a horizontal spindle coming out the side. Is there a little XY table? Or?
Yeah.
Cool. And the price was fantastic.
I've come to realize I think the price was fair.
Okay. Because of the condition?
The condition's good on it. One thing I just spent $140 on an 8-inch blade.
Okay.
20 millimeter arbor. You can't just go.
Right.
So this is part of the calculations I'm working through right now. My blades didn't fit, so I had to buy a new blade. Forrest, or there's a company who has Forrest make blades for the Incas. So I got one of them, but then it's like, okay, well, my dado stack's not going to fit. What am I going to do there? I'm sure I can send them to CT Saw and maybe have them bored out. I'm not sure.
How long is the arbor?
Can you even fit a dado blade on there?
Yeah, yeah. And it has a throat plate for a dado stack and everything.
Okay.
One other thing is the miter slots are 18 millimeter, not 3/4 inch. They're not deep like we're used to. They don't have the T-slot thing going on. So all of a sudden I was going, where am I going to get like 18-inch or 18 millimeter stock and I had a pile of 3/4 inch Baltic birch sitting there. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I pick up, goes, oh, look at that. There it is. There's my runners, but here's another thing. I knew most of this going in, but the reality is different than the daydream sometimes. The height of the blade does not change. The height of the table changes.
Okay. Does the table tilt?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So what I'm telling myself there. So
which way does it tilt?
It tilts to the left.
So it's in essence a right tilting blade if the table were flat?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm telling myself is, don't remember last time I tilted my unisaw blade? Is it really going to be a big problem? Probably not.
If you're cutting dovetails.
I'm probably not going to do that.
You'd be like sliding off the deck of the Titanic as you're cutting your dovetails. Cool.
And part of me says, okay, my brother has a unisaw in his basement. We have a saw stop here.
Yeah.
If I need to do big case work, I have options. Yeah, the calculations are still not settling. One of my issues right now is it's just in the way. Mm-hmm. Because the unisaw is sitting there unused. And then there's this totally other table saw that is just in the way.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to use the Inca to get used to it. So I think I need to move the unisaw out. Maybe over there.
That's where mine was.
That's like I'm selling this table saw storage closet.
That's my white oak. Please don't touch that closet.
You're not going to run that through the planer on me, are you? So yeah, I'm just wrapping my head around this thing.
Well, I know actually a friend of mine, he's a professional cabinet maker. He has a Martin sliding table saw, huge thing. And he has the little Inca saw too. And he just keeps them both set up and he just likes that for little cool little stuff. So I don't think it has to be either or. If it's a space issue, yeah.
It is a space issue. It's a space issue. It's a financial issue. I've always operated on bring something in, something kind of has to go to pay for it.
It's also a little bit of a self-identity issue in that, okay, you start off, I'm a woodworker. I need to be prepared to make anything, right? Yeah. So I need 8 foot in feet out feet clearance at my table saw and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, well, maybe I'm an instrument maker.
Yeah.
And then that would shape your shop. And that's interesting.
Well, and that's been an interesting journey for me with this shop too, because when I started, I was, really interested in, this just goes to show you never know what you're going to wind up making. But I really thought I was going to make, spoons and bowls and chairs. So when I laid my shop out, I wanted to make sure I had room for my shaving horse. Well, my shaving horse is disassembled in the garage now. It's there. I'm not going to get rid of it, but it's no longer a part of my world, my day-to-day life. I don't see stopping making instruments anytime soon. I really enjoy it, but we were just talking, I was like, oh, I kind of want to make a table or I kind of want to make, so I don't want to turn into no table saw guy. And the idea of the horizontal mortiser on the side is just, it's awesome. And in theory, I could possibly sell the unisaw and my domino.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the small domino? Mm-hmm. Why am I even thinking about buying another domino? I'm just like,
we give the XL?
No, I have the small domino.
Just dueling dominoes.
It's like, wait, what are you selling it for?
Last time I talked about selling the domino because I wanted to buy a guitar amp. I had a bunch of DMs or whatever. So it's always good to know you can sell the domino, and I could sell the unisaw pretty well. And the other thought too is that if all of a sudden 2 years down the road I discover I'm not an Inca guy, it's not going to be hard to find another unisaw.
Yeah, there's always Inca guys out there.
Yeah,
there's Unisaws just getting cheaper and cheaper. Why do you think I sold mine?
To get out of the market.
Because I got a saw stop.
Yeah.
So now, yeah, I mean, it used to be the Unisaw, you could not find one, period.
Really?
That was the holy grail. You could never, ever find one for sale because why would someone sell it? Like maybe a school program was closing down and you can score one that way. But then, you know, when I, at the machine place where I had my planer worked on, I think I didn't even stop to count. There's probably at least a half dozen pre-saw stop saws, everything from Unisaws to Powermatic 66 to, it's the table saw graveyard.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be tough to find.
Yeah. So, yeah. I just wanted to be honest with you. And I want to make sure it was done on video too. So
free commercial.
In case there was drama.
No, that's fine.
Did you listen to the new Shop Talk? Mike fired Ben on air. All right. Should we answer some questions?
Yeah.
All right. We've got some mailing questions specific for Mike. Mike, how do I do this?
Well, are you making fun of me now?
That was my replay of lunch. From Daniel. So this is kind of a twofer. We've got one from Daniel and an addendum from Mike, somebody else named Mike. Daniel, I'm currently following along with Mike's Foundations of Woodworking book, which I'm really enjoying. Link in the description. However, I'm confused about the best way to mill thin 1/4 inch and 5/8 inch stock, which he uses a lot in the book, and I haven't found a lot of help online. I've tried a few methods, but I was wondering if you could chat about what steps you follow when trying to mill thin stock like that. My first thought was to resaw on the bandsaw. However, the boards cup like crazy, and there isn't enough material left to redimension them on the jointer. I tried planing down from 3/4 inch, but that just feels very wasteful. Any tips? And let's answer that, and then we'll do the second part from Mike.
Yeah, that can be a little bit tough. I think. So if I'm getting 1/4 inch thick stuff, if I want to end up with 1/4 inch thick, I'm doing all my resawing off of at least 8/4 stock.
What?
2 inch.
Okay.
Thick stock.
For 1/4 inch.
For 1/4 inch. I find that what he's talking about in terms of the board's warping, yeah, if you take a board and you rip it right down the center, both pieces are going to tend to cup and bow towards the center. However, if you have a 2 inch thick board and you're ripping 1/4 inch thick slices off of it, there's a really good chance that the two outer surfaces, those 1/4 inch boards, they're going to bow and cup right toward the center. There's a really good chance that next board you slice off of there, inside of that is going to stay pretty straight. So I find that most of the sort of the case hardening or the tensions in stock happens towards the outer surfaces of that board. And once you slice through that, you can get a little bit tighter. So if I want a 1/2 inch thick stock, which I do 1/2 inch thick boxes a lot, I'll start with 8/4 stock, and you can set it for basically, it's like a heavy 5/8 inch cut. And the outer boards are going to cut more, and the center board is going to be dead straight. So I'll set up for a slightly heavy cut, take it off one face, rotate it, take it off the other face, make sure those are a little bit heavier because I know they're going to warp more. The center one I can get pretty close to final dimension, give or take, because I know that's going to be pretty stable. So if I'm going for 1/4 inch, I'm not going to take a 4/4 board, inch thick board, and expect to get 4 1/4 inch thick pieces or even 3/4 inch thick pieces. I think you're still pretty tough. I think if I was starting with a 4/4 board, ripping it in half, I'd be really lucky to get 2 3/8 inch thick piece, say backboards or something like that.
It's a sad realization when you figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It means a lot more lumber than you think. Again, if you're starting thick, you're going to be able to get a much greater yield out of that in terms of the warping. So like 5/8 inch thick, that's a toughie.
Well, you're not planing it down from 3/4 to 5/8?
Yeah, if it's true 3/4, but if it's like 4/4, if it's a true inch, I hate chewing up 3/8 of stock to get down to 5/8.
What? And I maybe misunderstood. I thought it was 1/4 inch by 5/8 inch thick stock. But are you reading it as 1/4 inch and 5/8 inch? There's a comma.
I assume you're two different thicknesses.
Okay. All right. Okay.
It's really tough. I do like working with thinner stock, and then we run a class at Connecticut Valley, and Bob Van Dyke is like, how am I supposed to get these thicknesses? And he doesn't mind just milling something down. I think he gets like 1/2 inch drawer sides out of inch thick stock. Keep it going and keep measuring. Because that's a whole different situation. It's much closer to production where he's not going to be sitting there resawing and
time is money.
Yeah. So, but I do think varying up your dimensions is a really important thing to your furniture design. I think you'll find that once you really start sizing parts to fit the scale of the piece, things are going to look really nice. If you stay thick throughout every component on a smaller piece, it's a 3/8 inch case and 3/8 inch dividers and 3/8 inch or 3/4 inch shelves, it's going to be super heavy. But the more you can scale down and control the thickness of your parts, I think it's worth it.
So I was immediately thinking, Kumiko strips and everything. Those are just ripped straight off of a 3/4 inch board, right?
No, my Kumiko strips are 1/8 inch by 1/2 inch. And so I mill 3 1/2 inch thick blanks out of a 8/4 piece of pine.
Okay.
And then from there, I rip those 1/8 inch strips off of those 1/2 inch thick blanks. Yeah.
Okay. So you don't really buy 4/4 stock, do you?
Only if it's staying 4/4 or give or take.
Yeah. But you're almost always buying 8/4. Now that I think about it,
a lot,
except white oak.
Yeah.
I've seen you buy 4/4 white oak.
Yeah, but then I'm also have to be buying 5/4 white oak because a lot of heavier arts and crafts pieces, if you start 4/4, you can end up a little bit skinnier than what you want. Mm-hmm. So I like 5/4.
You look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, the side benefit of doing. It seems like a side benefit of resawing like 1/4 inch boards off of an 8/4 board. Like you get color match too. Like, so then you have that big thinner piece where it seems like now that 8/4 pain in the butt, because that's obnoxious. Like I'm getting an 8/4 board to get well-behaved 1/4 stock or 1/4 inch resaws. It's like, no, now you have a board for the piece. Like this is your thing. And part of this is in my brain because I know that I need to get better at seeing components in the thickness, the width, and the length of the stock. Like I can normally handle 2 of those pretty easily at the lumberyard. You give me 3, I'm like, okay, break out the calculator, and so it's triply, doubly extra worth it because now you get like well-behaved resaw boards, you get color matching, you get this cohesiveness on top of usability.
Yeah. Yeah. So our local lumberyard, they have 8/4 by 14 to 16 inch wide by 16 foot long, clear Eastern white pine boards. And I'll get one of those and I'll mill it into 1.2 million Kumiko strips. And I feel like I'm taking like a massive bluefin tuna and slicing it up into little pieces of sashimi, but it works. It's a good way to get there.
Yeah. You know what I realized the other day is that you still have that big old piece of pine at my place. I saw it the other day. And
You're welcome.
I was like, what am I going to make out of that?
You want me to take it off your hands? No, sure. All right, good.
Yeah, no. It just,
for my kitchen table? Or maybe my coffee table.
I don't remember what it was from.
Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Yeah, it was a nice board. It is a nice board. Going to be something
nice. Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
It's the only good thing about people leaving the staff is they invariably get rid of their lumber stash.
Yeah, I just keep coming in. There's like little tools on my desk too. It's like, I can't take this here.
I remember there was one really nice little bronze block plane, infill block plane, super nice. And it was missing from the shop like forever. Like it was just gone. Mm-hmm. And then like, I don't know, a week before a certain person decided to leave, it showed up in the drawer.
Well, we used to have in the old shop, there used to be like a list on the wall of like borrowed tools.
Yeah.
And like the last person to sign it was Matt Berger, who started working, findwoodworkingonline.com. All right. So the second part of this from Mike, I'm working on a couple pieces based on Mike's Wenge tea box. For clasps, Mike makes it sound easy to face the block with a thin strip of ebony once the magnets are installed. But what's a safe way to make those thin strips of ebony in the first place? I'm used to cutting shop saw and veneers on the bandsaw, but that's with much larger pieces of stock. Doing that with affordably tiny pieces of ebony is another thing altogether. So I would maybe assume might be working from like turning blanks or something like that. But maybe Mike is like me, and I have a box just labeled black stuff, and it's just filled with like little offcuts of that are teeny tiny, I
have like longer sticks.
Okay.
Like way back, I needed doing some ebony stringing on this bow front sideboard in a dining room, and it was like, I don't know, 52 inches wide or something. So anyway, I needed like at least a 48-inch long piece of ebony, and all I could find was an 8/4, 2-inch thick by about 4-inch wide by like 5-foot long piece of ebony.
So are you missing a kidney? You would have to have sold off some.
Whatever it was, I think back in the day it was $50 a board foot, and I think it came out to be 3 board feet. So it was like a $150 piece of ebony. And I still have it. I still probably have 3/4 of it. And again, I'm just like slicing off a little piece that I need. So, whenever I can, especially with small parts and thin parts, is I always try to keep things long in length as long as possible because it's easier to work. Something that thin, if you have a nice, sharp, thin curved blade because you want to maintain as much yield as you can from the ebony, I can rip something that thin on the table saw, and it's just good. What I do find though is that this facing, basically it caps the inside of a two-part handle where there's rare earth magnets embedded in the handle on either side. And when the magnets get any distance apart, they lose their attraction pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So I find that I'll start with pretty thin stock, just ripped off the table saw, glue it up. And if the attraction isn't quite right, then you probably just like block plane it down because ebony, it seems like super hard, but it planes really nicely. Or you could just use sand it by hand or a belt sander or something. You could actually thin up that ply a little bit more after it's glued up, and then check the attraction between the magnets until you get that fit you want. And it's pretty easy to get really, really thin without worrying about sanding through that altogether. So I get as thin as you can on the table saw, and then if you need to get thinner, I would do it after it's glued up, and now you're back to a thick block instead of working on a really thin piece of wood.
So I had two thoughts. Sometimes you talk about projects and I can't imagine you making them because you have an identifiable style right now, and like a bow front sideboard is not fitting in that what we know currently. You know,
mahogany with ebony poles and ebony tapered legs and ebony beading. Yes, that was my Crate and Barrel catalog commission era, where you go to someone and they say, "I want you to make this," and then you make that.
Well, it just reminded me of our production editor, our production manager, Liz Healy. She used to every Wednesday post a Who Made It on our Slack channel. Who Made It Wednesday. And she would always search out woodworkers that the staff would know but try and find something that no one would think that person made. And the one that she found for you was a 4-poster bed, right? That
like a colonial
turn
cherry.
fluted columns.
Yeah, and we were all guessing like Phil Lowe and like Al
I could have sworn it was Lonnie
Breeze.
Bird. I'm like, it's Lonnie Bird. We can end this right now. I'll tell you who it is.
But it really, and I didn't realize how, you were a hired gun for a while. You know, you made what you were paid to make.
Yeah.
And it just, you probably learn an awful lot in that process too.
Yeah, because almost everything was like, sure, I can make that. How am I going to make that? Yeah, that was very adventuresome.
Is that why you had that enormous lathe?
No. You just had to.
You just wanted an enormous lathe?
I'm selling your old lathe too, but no.
That's a sweet little lathe.
It is a nice little lathe.
Little, isn't that like?
It's like a 30-inch.
Yeah.
Bed.
Oh.
I did all my turning for that on the lathe, the old general lathe we had in the shop, which was nice. And that was all like segmented posts and they fit perfectly, and then figuring out how to do that. And then it actually worked. And then how do you do the fluting on a tapered column? So the flutes taper along with the column. So they're wider at the bottom, narrower at the top. So everything, and you can do that.
Right on.
It would be interesting to see, because I'm sure you have photos of all of this stuff. You should just like do a couple of Instagram posts and just go back through. I think that would be interesting, or a blog or something.
Or something for the website, whatever.
Yeah, I'll take a blog post. Yeah, sure. What was the other thing? Oh, back to this thing. What if Mike, with his teeny tiny piece of ebony, glued the teeny tiny piece of ebony to a larger piece in order to mill a teenier, tinier piece off of the teeny tiny piece?
That's always a good trick. Yeah, I don't think it necessarily pertains in this case, but I like that.
But like if you feel unsafe milling a small piece, we glue wood together all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So like it's part of what we do, right?
Yeah.
So glue that to a bigger piece of wood. Make it a big piece of wood.
And then, yes.
And then mill it that way.
Yeah, I think, was it in the Hank Gilpin article on working with small parts? It was either that article or a previous one when they just basically, I think, hot melt glue a little pole or something onto a long stick.
What was that?
So then they can work it like with the belt sander and all that. Yeah, that's always super cool. Yeah, whenever you can, keep it big as long as possible. And then if it's too small, stick it on something. Definitely.
Just in case you can't buy 3 board feet of ebony, which is getting more and more expensive every day. All right, let's take a break. As a Shop Talk Live listener, you know that if a project is worth doing, it's worth doing right. Pony Jorgensen takes the same pride in crafting their clamps as you do in crafting your furniture. Pony Jorgensen clamps are made using only the highest quality materials, and they inspect each one to guarantee consistency and performance. Head on over to ponyjorgensen.com to explore their wide range of pipe clamps, bar clamps, hand clamps, and one of my all-time favorite tools of all time, wooden hand screws. Pony Jorgensen, makers of clamps without compromise since 1903.
Never. Because the rotation of the bit in
It was
one
double
direction. I had 2 fences in there.
Sorry, that's why, yeah.
Okay. All right.
But it still went.
Mike, that joinery's not finished, by the way. He's going to watch
hate you. This is a vulnerable moment, and I explained the vulnerability, and now you're just pacing out for the whole podcast.
Man, smell blood in the water. I don't know what y'all were talking about, but it's all recorded, so I can find out if I want.
Damn. Is there a place to erase that?
No, but yeah, you were. Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to talk about an all-time favorite technique of all time. Or tool.
Oh, are we there?
But no, but it sounds like you're jamming me into a smooth move.
No. Barry was just very.
So I'm making doors. and they have
For your mom.
like architectural doors.
yeah,
not
yeah, like interior
cabinet
doors. Yeah, through tenons. And I was excited about it. Like this is and I'm carving it, but like the through tenons on these big doors, I was excited for. I don't know why. And what was the story? Oh, so I'm wedging them. I cut them narrow. I cut the tenons narrow so I could wedge them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's very clearly a ton of wedge space left, you know? But I wanted to make it very clear to Ben that I was wedging these tenons. The doors are dry assembled over there. You can see like the 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch gap on each side of the tenon. And I told Ben, I'm like, just so you know, I'm wedging all those tenons. I don't want you to think that those are finished. And it was like the maximum level of, yeah, but I left some tear out over there. There's like some glue squeeze out in that back corner. We've known each other for 5 years. Like, but listen, I'm wedging those tenons. I didn't leave the 1/4 inch gap equally on every tenon because I'm inadequate. And I told Ben, I know that he knows, but my insecurity made me say something. And so then he just decided to spill that whole thing for the podcast. So thank you. That's beautiful. Yeah, I feel great now.
It was just, it was such a woodworker moment though. It was that like, oh, that's a great thing you made. Oh yeah. Right up, except that piece of terra right there. But like, you were just so like, dude, don't look at this. But if you do, it sucks and I'm wedging it.
Well, so the conversation I had with Mike off camera during the break was there's a mortise that ended up too wide. Like if Ben sees that gap, I don't know what he's going to. So as I'm working, it was a note to myself, but then I realized it was a note for the shop, because I shared shop, that this mortise is poopy. And so I wrote poopy next to the mortise.
You wrote poopy?
I mean, yes and no. Like I wrote like a more adult version, like PG-13 version.
Caca.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I hope that if Ben or Mike sees this mortise, they'll know that I know that this is an inadequate mortise.
Well, but see, I think the actual conversation was you were comparing the work to another piece of work that has come up wanting in our eyes. Yeah. And I was like, well, dude, don't worry about it. Like, that's not finished. And it's like your doors aren't finished. This is not like no one is judging.
Like how terrible something looks before it's finished. You're right. It's universal. You just have to like trust the process. Have you? I don't know what that face is, but I want the story. Or
it ain't good.
I'm kind of hoping things are looking pretty good throughout the whole process.
Wow,
really?
You've got the point of the matter is that until it is finished, you have a chance to, because you had even said, oh, I might do like a faux mortise there or a faux tenon.
Or like plug something.
To plug it. Or I might do, and it's like there is fixes and plugs and stuff.
There's an Instagram video of you plugging, I think it's in your book too, plugging there's either a mortise or you put a fake dovetail in. You put a pin in. And I think the caption was
he did it on purpose.
Poop emoji happens. I know he did it on purpose.
I did not use poop emoji.
It wasn't poop emoji happens?
No. But I did use the back of a chisel with a yellow lucite handle, like the old...
Mm-hmm. Like a Buck Brothers.
Yeah, a Buck Brothers to tap it in or something.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I think Raleigh said, like nice chisel. Like, because but he didn't mean that facetiously, but he noticed that. It's like, someone noticed I used a yellow acrylic handled chisel to tap that in. Yeah, I did a dovetail and it just like, it broke off. Yeah. And so I saved it through the whole process. There's like this little gap tooth thing and just in final glue up, I just like tapped it in. Mm-hmm. And there you go. So, okay.
Yeah, like you want it to look good, but until it's done, it is allowed to not look good.
It should look the way it should look at that stage.
Fair.
Listen, I just destroyed a ukulele body because it didn't come up to my standards. So do you want to talk about your favorite tool of all time?
Shut up. It ties in nicely with your handle. So I'm making these doors, and I routed the mortises. But they're through tenons, so I wanted to square them up. I normally hate that, and so these are 1/2 inch wide mortises. And they're not small. And I kind of hate squaring up mortises with bench chisels because I find the bench chisel hard to control up until you're at the baseline. I don't want it to twist or steer, and then you're kind of prying away at more wood than you expected to pry away at. It feels more skilled than the captions that I typically write, like, no, square up the mortise. It involves skill, and things can go wrong, which for a blind mortise, whatever, like, I don't care if the end is kind of jacked up, but on a through mortise, I absolutely care. So I have mortise chisels, and I love my mortise chisels because they don't want to turn as much because of the shape of the blade. Mm-hmm. So they get captured in the pre-existing mortise really well. You can also beat on them like crazy. My handles it's a mix of that lucite, was that the word? Like that yellow, that translucent yellow, and then translucent red. So they kind of remind me of like a root beer float or something, and they're very tacky, but I adore them because of
their strawberry lemonade flavor.
That's exactly it. It's strawberry lemonade. That is exactly right. You can pound on them with a metal mallet, or if you're using a wooden mallet for your other chisels, it's just like I have one more hammer on my bench, which is a small thing, but I appreciate. But they're also not oval in shaped. I think they're called a ovoid. It's a square with the corners chopped off, and that has or a rectangle with the corners chopped off.
Sure.
So it tells you how the handle's oriented, so you can keep the chisel square. It's not a round handle where you're kind of eyeing the blade and hoping it's right. And because it's sharpened, I think I sharpened it at 40 degrees. Like, let's see how this works. I made it through. So the mortises are 4 inches deep. I think I made it through 15 before I had to resharpen. I was like, this is a great experience because I was getting good results and I'm just plowing through stuff. And it felt like a luxury, like using a dado stack to cut tenons. Like when you don't do that and all of a sudden you do, it's like, this is marvelous, And that's how I felt about the mortise chisel. It did simple work really well, in part because of the contrast with not doing it with that tool,
Right. And it's what that tool is designed to do.
Exactly. Yeah. It was so my mortise chisel is my all-time favorite tool. I love it so much that I broke the first one. I bought the second one like right away. I was doing stupid stuff, and I showed you. It looked like the metal failed. Like it was just a really clean, weird break.
That was a weird. Yeah, no, that was a weird piece of metal. Yeah, I remember that one because that's the one that you came over and ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, my mortise chisel, I think it's Stanley. It's a Stanley with that red and yellow hand.
It's like a vintage chisel?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Not like cool vintage, like with the like raggedy wooden handle and, it's not a pig sticker.
Yeah.
It's like a 70s update to it. It's a shag carpet pig sticker, It's got that vibe. That's my all-time favorite tool. So, and I don't know if I'm selling it when I move.
Form an orderly queue.
No, someone has to give me a really good price. I think this is ending up in my essential kit of tools that I'm holding on to.
Because you have a little bit of space for long-term storage.
Yeah.
My basement.
Right next to that piece of pine.
That got me wondering, are marples raspberry flavored?
I think blue raspberry.
Yeah.
Probably. That's kind of a newfangled flavor, though. Was blue raspberry around when you were a kid?
Oh my God, you didn't.
I know. I was feeling like, oh, you're an idiot. But I have vivid memories of like being 10 or 8. And it was like, we have a new flavor world and we're too close in age. Oh, man. This is my first podcast back after he tells everybody I'm leaving. And I'm just tanking, man.
When are you leaving?
One of my favorite stories was a previous editor came over to your shop one time and he was looking at, I think you guys were like shooting photos. And he said, Mike, I love all your vintage machinery.
Yeah.
And I shut up, dude.
About that new, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't work here either.
I have an all-time favorite tool of all time for this week as well. I am not one for... I like simplicity most of the time. I don't like gadgets.
Okay.
I don't like a lot of the aluminum measuring devices that...
What about aluminum table saws?
I'm coming around to them. But
So is it the single-use thing?
it's the single-use thing.
Okay.
It's the you got to have this,
Yeah.
and you're going to use it once, and it's going to go in a closet for 10 years.
Or something designed to solve a problem, which isn't really a problem.
Well, there's a lot of that going on, but generally, I like how Ellen Casperin sets up a table saw with a combo square.
Oh, yeah.
And it's dialed. I'm not as good as Ellen Casperin. It's just the way it is. And I recently had to dial in our saw stop back there because somebody else was shooting video in here and decided to just push it all over the place.
That's the first I've heard of that, Ben.
I'm not worked up in the least about it. Hasn't been stewing over it for 2 weeks. But so, I texted them and I said, that saw better be calibrated by the time when we come back. And I checked it. It was out by, I think, 20 thousandths, 40 thousandths.
You told me a 30-second, I think.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it was a lot. And
In home building inches, that's 0.
oh, well, I'm not saying it was them. It was them. But so I started to set it back up, broke out the combo square, and saw stops are a little confusing to set the miter gauge to the blade, right? Or the miter slot to the blade. Because, with a unisaw, it's like you loosen up the bolt and you whap it with a hammer.
Right. Yes.
That's which way does it have to go? Whap
Yes.
that side.
Yeah.
And the saw stop's like, you read the manual, and the manual is fantastic and everything. This was one spot where I felt like it was a little wishy-washy.
I did a lot of whacking on our old saw stop tabletop in the old shop before reading the directions.
Yeah.
I wish I'd just whacked it. I wish I had just loosened up the Allen keys
Oh, okay.
and the bolts that you're supposed to whack it into position with a dead blow, tighten back up, But eventually I remembered, we have it's at my shop right now, so I can't reference it. I borrowed it.
Did you sign it out?
Yeah, right under Matt Berger's name. Right under Tom Bagnall's. But I dug out it's a woodpecker's saw measure thingy, and goes in the miter slot, sits on 2 little
That's
rollers.
one of the most brilliant things.
Yeah. So you put these 2 little rods in the miter slot and then another rod on top of it. And basically what it does is it makes sure it perfectly centers itself in the miter slot. And then you can just push it along the blade and measure it. And the difference for me was I was able to verify as I was tightening the screws on this saw stop, as I was tightening the set screws, I was able to see the dial move and know I was moving it in the right direction and how much it had moved, and then go back and forth. And as soon as I stopped being stubborn and saying, use the thing that is designed to do this thing really well that you have over there 20 feet away, I was done in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it really was one of those, like, if you don't have one, try and have a friend who has one, because that was really stinking great for that. And then I wound up taking it home last night and dialing in the Inca to 1.5 thousandths. Yeah.
Because it takes the guesswork out with the combo square, which is how I've done it before. Like, is that sound the same, or is that sound 5 thou out or 4 thou? And whereas having the numbers, it feels so much more comfortable. Like I can quantify this. This is great.
Yeah,
I'm into it.
I get hesitant because it's something that I'm going to buy. I'm going to set up my saw. And then I'm not going to need it again, probably. Like if I do everything right in my woodworking, I don't need it again.
Yeah.
But when I sat there and think about like, how much is your time worth? How much is your frustration worth? How much is all of this worth? That like price limit maybe started matching what you would pay for something like this, where it was like, if you can afford it, I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You got a thing?
I guess as a smooth move, it's just a painful life experience.
You told me smooth moves have to end on a happy note. They can't just be like, and then the
he's
piece
here with us now.
Yeah. I just got back from teaching a weekend hand tool skills class and went great. Great class. People doing really, really good work. The morale was good. The energy was good. Really, really fun class. Second half of the last day. So we've already established that this class is working. This is okay. So that's the best thing that I think I can take out of this is it wasn't the first demo I did. It happened later on. We finally got down to surface prep, and this is something that I've demoed and I've done for myself for 20 years without incident. So when I'm sharpening a smoothing plane blade, something that's going across the surface wider than the width of the blade, I just put a very slight camber on it. And it's something where it's so slight it can seem difficult to do, but it's really easy as you're sharpening just by pressuring the blade right and left as you go. And I talk about how I use 3 stones instead of 2. Instead of just like a 1,000, 8,000, I also have a 4,000 because a 4,000 is a perfect place to put a camber on the iron. You do it here, it's just the right amount of steel. The 8,000 is not enough, 1,000 is too much. And the only way you can tell is to put it back in your plane. I put everything in, reset the blade, center everything. And the idea is that you take a shaving, which is almost full width, but a little bit feathered on each end. And I don't know if it's a sample board I was using or the plane. It was just like, I couldn't keep one edge, one corner or the other from digging in, which usually means there's not enough camber because it's sort of hard to, you can't really center a blade in a plane that's flat or not enough camber without one of the corners digging in. It's just like, maybe the board I'm working on, maybe it's like concave. So, you're working on a concave. So I flip it over. It's like, nope. And I thought about it and it's like, I had sharpened pretty much all of my hand planes I have before this class so people can take a plane and use a sharp plane if they didn't come with one. So I had like 4 hand planes next to me. They're all like freshly sharpened. Nothing has been touched yet. So wait a minute, let me pull out another plane and same thing.
What?
And same thing. And I went through like 4 freshly sharpened hand planes and none of them is going to take this almost full width shaving feather on each end. And I'm just like, this is insane. So then I eventually took the original plane, took the blade black out, resharpened it, and this time I was just riding those edges.
Scrub plane,
just back and forth, back and forth. And it feels like it's probably been going on for 20 minutes, and everyone has definitely lost interest completely by this point. And I was just like, I got to keep at it. So I finally did it, finally got the blade back in, and I finally took my centered shaving, almost full width feather on each end, and I held it up, and I got, a couple lackluster pity applause claps.
That's great, Mike.
And it was just like, okay, so I think we've let all the air out of this balloon to this point. And go, okay, now you guys go try it. Good luck. Still don't know what happened. No idea.
It's so strange.
So like you really don't know what happened?
I don't. I kind of want to look back at those planes and just to see. I got to think, I don't know, maybe the piece of stock I was using, but I was flipping it and don't know.
Yeah, because you said a corner was digging in? Like that doesn't.
Yeah, like you're just getting like a solid edge to your shaving, one or the other, no matter what I did. Yeah, it was just very bizarre. And again, it wasn't something new. It wasn't something that I've demoed that I was unsure of, or something that I've demoed that sometimes didn't work. I mean, like it always worked.
Yeah.
So,
bummer.
Yeah. You said that smooth moves have to have a happy ending. There's no happy ending. The only happy ending is the next time I demo this, you better believe there's going to be a lot of camber.
I thought you were going to bring stunt shavings.
Oh, yes.
There it is. Well, we did that live stream setting up the bandsaw, and I totally expected it to need a little work. I put the blade on it and I was live on YouTube or whatever, and perfectly dialed, no drift,
and where did it come
nothing.
From?
Came from Barry's place. Right. And so then I just said, oh, well, let me just whack the table out of alignment. And so I can demo drift. After like 5 minutes, it was like, I can't get this saw to drift. I just couldn't get it to drift. And it was just apparent, like, trust me, this would be the problem, but I don't know if I just wasn't whacking it enough, like.
I'm surprised.
But yeah, it was just like, I went out of my way to try and get a bandsaw to drift, and I couldn't do it. But
you got the touch.
Yeah, it was the opposite of your problem, Mike.
Fair enough.
This is bad. This is a bad episode. This is
the thought I had in mind before you told the story, but it reinforces this thought, is that a demo where nothing goes wrong isn't necessarily a good demo.
No. Yeah.
A demo where something goes wrong, but you fix it, that's a great demo. Mm-hmm. The demo where it just goes wrong and you can't ever get back to right, I'm going to say that's a tough one.
Yeah, there's like, how do you recover?
Yes.
Go to your benches.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's answer one more question. This question is from Rob. And I'm going to read this as written because I learned from it. I wound up doing research as to what the greeting and farewell or whatever that's called meant. And I think y'all should too. Kia ora from New Zealand. I enjoyed listening to the most recent episode 262, where there was talk about the order in which tools should be bought. Haunting beginner forums on Facebook shows this is a frequently argued question. I cannot agree more that a planer is more useful than a jointer, though the convenience of having both is awesome. From the US perspective, it seems that the items are almost always bought separately, yet elsewhere combination machines are more common. My perspective would be that I could afford to buy a very high quality planer thicknesser, whereas the same quality machines as separate items would have been prohibitive, both in money and shop space. I currently use an 8-inch DeWalt planer thicknesser and have plans to upgrade to a 16-inch Hammer A441. I don't really need a 16-inch joiner, but the 16-inch planer is becoming essential as I like to do big stuff and find the maximum 8-inch thickness and capacity quite limiting. Buying a combination machine means one footprint, one motor, one casing, one dust port, and critically, one very expensive cutter block. The wear on which from jointing is of course going to be minimal. Basically, you get a jointer planer combo for only just over half the cost of buying equivalent machines separately. Or you could argue that you get a 16-inch joiner for the price of a 6-inch if you buy a planer with it.
I would buy a car from this person. He could sell me all the used cars.
He could talk. Yeah. He could talk himself and us into anything, I think. What do y'all think? Do you buy separates because you always have? Because you need a wider planer than jointer? Because you don't like the changeover? Really interested to hear the thoughts on what it is that separate machines have been so popular, where the logical approach seems to be buy a combination machine.
I also love the question because it's like, why are you wrong? Like, it's so
Dear America, logic.
Yeah.
And then Namihi, Rob.
And what are those, the greeting in?
Okay, I'll just give you the quick version. It sounds like in New Zealand, it is becoming common to include Maori language and greetings into their day-to-day life. And I think that's awesome. Namihi is like a respectful thank you.
Awesome.
And kia ora is a hello, or I didn't read as much on that one. Sorry, Rob, and New Zealand.
I think it was all of the above that he stated. So it was, is it traditionally done that way? Yeah. Is a changeover a pain in the butt? Yep. And I forget what the third one was.
Wider planer than jointer.
I think one point for it is, especially now, like with the segmented cutter heads becoming more popular in, it is more expensive, but the really long lasting knives, and to do double duty with the segmented cutter head as both a joiner and planer, I think that's super smart.
Yeah.
And we have a 12-inch joiner, so wide jointers are a really good thing.
Yeah.
The bed length on combo machines are often shorter.
Yeah.
Which obviously for a planer is no big. Well, planer, the beds are lifted up. But for flattening stock, the longer the bed, the better chance you're going to be able to get really, really flat, is a thing. I don't know if that's an argument against it. My thought, and I could be completely wrong, is combo machines tend to be a European thing. And I just assumed, because I'm an American, that maybe European shops are smaller and floor space is at a premium. In which case, if you have a really small shop, then I think a combination machine makes a lot of sense that way. I did some pricing really quickly, and a combination machine was still more expensive than, I think, a 15-inch planer. Definitely 15-inch planer and 8-inch joiner.
Yeah, I don't think you're saving that much money.
With helicals on both?
Yeah, I think once you kicked up to the 12-inch jointer with a helical cutter head and planer, it was almost the same price as a Hammer joiner planer combo.
I was shooting with someone, and he has a combo machine, and he's had different combo machines, I'm going to say, for decades. And I asked him about it because I'm super intrigued. Because I always have small shops. And this is the solution. And it's funny. Rob said, I don't need a 16-inch joiner. And I wrote, yes, you do. Like, when you use a 16-inch joiner, it's doing anything less is, it's like a joiner plane, so I was talking to the author about his combo machine. I was like, do you find the changeovers like drudgery? Like, do you just put up with this because you too have a tight shop? And he said, it's not ideal. He goes, but this is so well made. And his had 2 pistons on it so he would lift up the joiner bed and it would hold in any position, either fully up or you could just put it halfway down and it would hold there. And he goes, no settings go out of whack. He says, so changeovers, it's just kind of a bummer that I have to do them, but the machine is so wonderfully made that it's just like the 1 second inconvenience. So I think if I was to do one, doing a nice one that's really well set up feels pretty important, So it's not, you're not trying to lift these joiner beds the whole time or prevent them from slamming down as you're lowering them.
Yeah, aren't you're really having to zip something up and down? Don't you have to like lower the planer table really far in order to get the
dust,
dust collection on?
Yeah.
I think they're starting to work their way around that.
Yeah, because that's the thing for me. Is not necessarily just the changeover. It's just the fact that I don't want to lose a planer setting.
That's big. Yeah,
I don't want to lose it. Also, and okay, so if they've engineered this out, that's cool. They're expensive and good quality, but your jointer infeed and outfeed table, their alignment is so important. They have to be exactly coplanar in order for the machine to work. And just the fact that I've got an infeed and outfeed table moving up and down separately, some move together at the same time.
I don't think so.
Either way, it's just like, I would just be afraid that going up and down, they're not always going to be in dead alignment. Someone who has one, who can tell me otherwise, I wouldn't doubt them, but it's just something that seems kind of freaky to me.
I agree. I think that's why you need to go premium or not,
And I think that in Europe and other countries, they have had premium combo machines available to them for longer than we have. I remember when I first started woodworking, there was some smaller combo machines that were aluminum. I saw it was like a 10-inch combo machine, and I saw it and I was like, that does both, and it was not that much more. And every review was like, this thing is not worth it. And I think now we're starting to get an influx of availability of higher quality combo machines. I do know a few people with combo machines that love them. Maybe there's concessions to be made. I think that having to change the planer setting in order to switch between joiner and planer, that would be a deal breaker for some. It wouldn't be for others. Yeah. I am starting to think like I've got that big 8-inch joiner that the only place it fits in my shop is like under this, section where I have to duck down and I have to move 5 things, and I avoid using it because the only place it fits is on a hard spot to get to. So I've started like dreaming of, I've been seeing some smaller combo machines, and honestly, I started thinking about like, a little short bed 4-inch or 6-inch or something just to have out in clear daylight that I could like get to real quick for edge jointing if I'm resawing or something like that. So like, there's a concession to be made, every which way. I think I would rather have a combo machine that I could easily get to. And even if that meant I had to change things over, but the one thing that I don't think I would ever get rid of is my 12-inch DeWalt. I've got the 734, the cheaper DeWalt, but it's like, I'm not going to get much for it. I might as well, and it just sits there. Yeah. I might as well. And, so I'm not yearning for a wider joiner. Or a wider planer. I'm yearning for easier access, and I think I would leave the DeWalt in case I had something set and I couldn't move it.
Right.
The planer setting is big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a friend of mine has a joiner planer, really, really nice. Loved it. Then I think he ended up getting a little lunchbox planer too. Might have been the DeWalt 735.
The 735 is like the nicer,
nicer one. And then I think he also ended up with a Powermatic 15-inch planer. Yeah. So I think economics is a big issue too, because I think if you're a pro shop, having floor space and probably the money for just a separate joiner and planer is not a big deal. But I think for a home shop, you can get by woodworking just with a little lunchbox planer. for a few $100 and then hold off on the joiner. Then maybe get a 6-inch joiner. Yeah. Then maybe, okay, I'm going to sell that and move up to an 8-inch joiner. Okay, now I'm going to move up to a 15-inch planer. I think all those you can do incrementally and over a long period of time instead of saying, boom, $8,000, I'm going to get this. Yeah.
Well, and the $645 I just spent on that 30-year-old table saw was the most I've spent on any tool. At no point in my life has a combo machine ever been financially viable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was always working my way into it as I could. It would be nice. And I know a lot of our readers and listeners and everything, they have more disposable income. And that's great that you can buy the big expensive combo. It's never, ever, ever been an option for me. I've always had more space than money, or I've always had more of an aptitude to just deal with the annoyances of this or that than money or space or whatever. There's always a balance to be had. But yeah, I picked up my DeWalt for $250. I got the joiner from the old shop, and that's the way that I've worked it. And maybe one day I'll sell that joiner and get a little Inca combo machine. But if you can swing it and it makes sense to you, I think there's a lot of great combo machines out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's never made sense for you space-wise either, because you've...
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your shop is like you've got like a Tetris shop that...
It's perfectly plug and play.
It's set up, and it's like if you moved one thing this way or that, it's going to...
Yeah, I ended up upgrading my 13-inch. It's a cast iron Delta planer, RC33 vintage planer that I bought new in 1984. That
was blue raspberry a flavor? We haven't. Sorry.
Yes, at 7-Eleven you can get a blue raspberry icy.
Oh,
maybe. Someone's Googling this right now.
I had to stop myself.
So, and so I had a cast iron planer, 13-inch. I really liked it, but it had straight knives, and I wanted a segmented cutter head, and I really liked the Powermatic 15-inch planer with a segmented cutter head, nice and beefy. And if I had, the cost of the cutter head for the Delta planer was pretty expensive, and to get it installed was pretty expensive. So the cost of installing that plus what I could have sold my planer for, it was about the same as getting a new 15-inch planer, but it's still economically, because I didn't want to go through all that, it was just cheaper on paper in the short run to upgrade my little planer. Plus, I really liked it. Plus, it fit in my shop.
Yeah.
Because your 13-inch sits on a table. I mean, it is the heaviest benchtop planer in the history of the world.
Yes.
But it's on a table that you probably made to fit right there. And like if I'm looking at our 15-inch over here, the outfeed of that would probably slam right into your benchtop. Like you've got your heights worked out.
Yes.
In a 3D manner.
And there is no infeed and outfeed table on my planer. It's just a little block. Yeah.
Oh, I had a really good smooth move with that. This was dumb.
With Mike's planer?
No, with mine. But I have a piece of melamine I put on the bottom of it because I plane really thin stuff. And, I wheeled my planer outside because I didn't feel like hooking up any dust collection, which I don't have. And I wheel it outside and I just throw the piece of melamine with the cleats on it under there. And I start planing away. It's like, this piece is a wedge. Just keep planing, thinking that I just wasn't coming down on one side. There was like a pile of sawdust under the piece of melamine. It's like, you're an idiot. How did you not clear that off before you put this auxiliary bed on your planer? Sorry. Had to cop to that. Well, does anyone have any recommendations or?
Yeah. The It's Lit podcast. So I'm super snobby about book stuff, like to the point where I don't really engage with it's really bad.
Yeah, we know.
But it's a podcast that is a spin-off or extension of a YouTube series on PBS's channel. And the podcast is hosted by Princess Weeks, and she does a really excellent job of engaging with the author but also contributing. So it feels more like a conversation than an interview. And that I really enjoyed because it has this, it's like educated informality, you know? And they talk about cool topics. I think there are only 8 episodes so far, and it's mostly genre focused. So like sci-fi or YA or fantasy, I think they did twice. But it's really good. So if you're into books, if you're into genre stuff, the podcast I highly recommend.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thanks for letting us be with you during your walk or your commute or your never-ending sanding time in the shop. If you want to support the show, best way of doing that is by getting a Fine Woodworking subscription or becoming a Fine Woodworking Unlimited member. Also, always a good way of supporting the podcast is by leaving an iTunes review. So it helps other people discover the show. If you're watching on YouTube, click that thumbs up button. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for listening.
Ben, can we like curse on this? He goes, yeah, sure. Like it's easy going. Let's just like be ourselves. And 5 minutes into recording, he goes, I'm going to need you to dial it back, Barry.